Hello and welcome back to the Football Chat podcast. It's episode number 97 today, where we will be discussing whether the Premier League is too rich. Throughout this January transfer window, we've seen some Premier League clubs pay some extortionate prices for some of world football's hottest talents. I think it begs the question, is the Premier League too rich? What are your first thoughts before we break it down a bit more, Harry? Do you think the Premier League is too rich?
There's a lot of money in it.
Great statement. Great.
Yeah, good start. And compared to other leagues, it is a lot richer. So I guess you could argue from a competitive point of view and a comparison point of view compared to the other top leagues, maybe it is too rich. But I think there's always room to get richer.
Interesting.
Which I think maybe could be the concern. Because if you look at the long-term aspects of things, I think the Premier League is just getting richer. It's
wealth breeds wealth.
The rich gets richer,
exactly,
the poor gets poorer.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, well, when we were trying to think of podcast topics to discuss this week, it was on Sunday when I saw that Bournemouth were going in for Nicolo Zaniolo. I think it was Sunday that I saw that.
Ridiculous.
And I just thought, how AC Milan are going in for Zaniolo? How are 18th in the Premier League and what was second in Serie A at the time competing for a transfer? That just seems absolutely mental to me. I think this was Sunday morning. Obviously now we've seen AC Milan lose 5-2, and maybe that is why Bournemouth are able to compete, because AC Milan aren't great. But yeah, shall we start from the top then? Why is the Premier League so rich? I think the most compelling factor is the extensive interest. The Premier League is watched globally. It's probably the most global sport, isn't it? I think
it's probably. You look at Serie A, very hard to watch. La Liga, you can barely watch it in England unless you buy a separate thing just for La Liga. You have to buy La Liga TV or have I think it's on Viaplay. Obviously, Bundesliga recently came to Sky Sports
and that'll help
the pandemic. Because not start the pandemic, but during lockdown, because that's obviously the first league to get back up and running.
Yeah,
that's when it first came to Sky. So that's obviously good. Serie A is on BT, but again, it's poor coverage. I mean, sometimes you see BT cutting into the game 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Or even later sometimes. Watched the Milan derby last year. It's 30 minutes into kickoff.
Same with Ligue 1.
So the Premier League being such a global entity, obviously we know it was one of the first to break into it was the first to break into the Asian market and then the American market, and that has helped it a lot because... Yeah, you see the difference in the clubs that are doing well now, the clubs that were doing well then, or at least the clubs that, because they have the biggest fan bases. Clubs like Manchester United have so many fans coming in from Asia because when the Premier League first hit Asia, United were the best club, so a lot of people flocked to them.
Same America.
And then the same with America. There's a lot of American fans that are Manchester United fans. Obviously, I think there are a lot more. Obviously, America's a massive country, so it took more time to be able to break all of America. But I think the Premier League is doing a very good job of it. I'd argue the Premier League is the second most watched sporting event. I think the only thing ahead of it is the World Cup, which again is football. Football, we know, is the most watched.
But I think also on that one, it's the most global America sport. And Asia, not only is it the fact that football's got out there, America and Asia have come to football. Obviously, Todd Bowley, it comes to the Premier League, sorry. Owning Chelsea. There's a lot of Asian owners in the Premier League.
Yeah, and we'll get on to why that is a little later. But the next point on top of that extensive interest is the very expensive television rights and contracts. If you have Sky, BT, Amazon Prime, all of them, you'll know this is a very expensive task to keep up with all of the football. I think it totals to, I saw someone working out the other day that it totals to £90 a year. Obviously, having those contracts does give you access to other sport and other events, so you might get more bang for your buck. You might be able to, pay less if you're only watching the football on Sky, for example. But all in all, it comes to about £90 per month, which to watch all of the football, it's quite expensive, and it's something that a lot of people can't afford. And then obviously we've seen recently that whole debate with the streaming services, the police are cracking down on it, but when you consider the amount of money that these companies have to pay to hope to have the rights to the Premier League, they're forced into these ridiculous contracts.
I do also think, and I look at this, £90 is probably the price of a ticket.
Well, depends what club.
I was going to say, some of the bigger clubs in the Premier League.
Both let you in for a fiver if you're nice.
You could just probably walk in there for free if you're
possibly,
a dinner lady. But I think...
okay, sure.
That's the thing. You pay £90 a year just to watch it from home.
Yeah.
But again, it becomes a bigger thing when you want to watch one game. You have to pay the same amount, and especially most people don't watch things alone.
It does imply that we are on the track to just one big Premier League streaming service, whether that is someone like Apple or Netflix coming in, purchasing the rights to Premier League and putting it on their platform, whether that's the Premier League taking that separately, because I think it would be the most profitable and most sensible thing to do if they put it all on one platform.
It is very stupid how it is on 3 different broadcasting
because the Premier League don't make more by selling different parts of the rights to different people.
Yeah.
So if they could sell it all to one person, and I think obviously for that to happen, it's going to have to be someone rich. A rich company, so you'd imagine an Apple, and we know obviously they get interested in the streaming service. They've got Apple TV. That would help them make a lot of sales on Apple TV and help them fight with Netflix. I do think that's the way we're going. And I think that would make it more accessible for fans and still earn the Premier League a lot of money, which is ultimately what the Premier League want to do, isn't it? But those TV rights deals, they're so expensive, and that gives the Premier League so much more money than any other league with TV rights. And then the third point in terms of the extensive interest, we've touched on it a bit in the first one, but they do have bigger and more global fan bases.
I mean, all over the world. Like, you could go
the Premier's watched everywhere.
America, they're probably really passionate for the Premier League, absolutely love it. But if you went to one of them and asked them to name 5 Serie A teams, 5 La Liga teams, they probably couldn't do that.
But you ask them to name all 20 in the Premier League, and I reckon they get pretty close. Yeah. And I think that is also amplified by, I don't know many people that I talk to on a day-to-day basis that have a Bundesliga club.
Yeah.
That have, they regularly follow German football, or they might be fond of Barcelona, Real Madrid, but obviously I think they're a separate entity. I think Barcelona, Real Madrid, because of their success, have been able to get a bigger and more global fan base, and that helps them compete on that in that regard. But I think the fact is, I think most people in Europe have a Prem club. I don't think many people in England have a European club.
It's how everyone in England, well, the majority of English football fans will just watch the Premier League. But if you go to other countries, you will find that they don't.
What the Premier League is,
they don't watch their domestic league. They also watch the Premier League.
They don't just watch the
exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas there's a lot of people in England who just watch Premier League, don't really care about any of the leagues. But if you go to any,
obviously there are going to be people out there that don't give a squeak about the Premier League, but love the Serie A. But for the large majority of people, I think in England there's less emphasis on other leagues, whereas I think in other leagues in other countries there's more emphasis on watching the Premier League. But how does this help the Premier League then? Well, the first point is it attracts the best players. It does this with one of 2 ways, and sometimes both. One, the Premier League is the most competitive league. I think that is not really up for debate. If you look over the last 10 years, I think it's had the most winners, I'd imagine.
That is the problem. You look at Bundesliga, Bayern
have won it every single year for about 16 years.
It's only recently that Juventus have been toppled in the Serie A. Real Madrid, again, have only recently been challenged to...
And even then, there's only 3 clubs. Whereas in the Premier League, we've seen, in recent years, Manchester City, Chelsea, Leicester win it, with the potential for Arsenal this year. If you go back a little further before that, you've got United, you've got Liverpool in there as well. That's 6 clubs there. And Tottenham are always in the fight, apparently, but they have not won one.
And they never will.
Well, you never know, do you? They might do one day, but obviously this does help attract the best players. In terms of wages, we know the fat contracts that players can earn. We're talking about this on stream, actually, on Sunday night, with the Napoli-Roma game, as to, people we were discussing in chat, so thanks to everyone that hopped in, talking about Victor Osimhen and why he would choose to go to the Premier League rather than be a Napoli legend. And actually, if you look at his current contract, it's on 122 grand a week. Mudrik's just joined Chelsea at 21, a prospect. He's not even the finished article yet, and he's on 97 grand a week. So you'd imagine if Osimhen was to come to the Premier League, he could easily double, maybe even triple, depending on his club, his salary. So that is why players come to the Premier League. Not only is it the most competitive league in the world, not only is it the most widely watched, so you become the biggest you can become a much bigger individual star, but you're also earning a lot more money.
And I do think, again, like Bournemouth, for example, as we said, in the relegation zone, in the Premier League, have the same amount of money to compete for AC Milan, who are near the top of the Serie A, for a player. But the difference is...
This isn't even like... AC Milan haven't been in Europe a few years. They've been in Europe the last few years. They won the league last year. They're the reigning champions.
If you flip it on the reverse, Spezia could not challenge Tottenham to probably, but
Spezia couldn't even challenge many Championship clubs. I think a majority of players would rather play in the Championship than they would in the bottom of the Serie
we
A.
say it's for Elite, Rich. I think he's just English football in entirety.
Potentially, and I think that derives from actually the structure of the English football pyramid being so good. It's something that not many people talk about on a day-to-day basis, but the structure of the English pyramid is brilliant. It really does help. Well, I know obviously there's a lot of complaints that the wealth doesn't always trickle down, but I think a lot of the time it does tend to make its way down through the leagues. But it's only really clubs that don't utilise or are able to grasp those finances that struggle a bit more.
I think the Premier League is one of the only leagues where promoted teams from the Championship can still challenge and stay afloat in the Premier League.
The fact that the biggest prize, the final with the biggest prize money in all of world football, it's not the World Cup, it's not the Champions League, it's not the Club World Cup, surprisingly there, because it definitely could be, it's the Championship playoff final. That earns you £200 million.
I mean, if you ask me, I'd rather get promoted through the playoffs than get promoted.
You earn more money. You earn more money and you get to Wembley. Which you could find, but it is a bit more stressful.
But
would you rather be Burnley this season or Middlesbrough?
No.
Okay, sure. But yeah. On top of that, the richest people want a slice of the pie. Every time a Premier League club goes to market, there are a swarm of investors.
Yeah.
Look at Manchester United. You've instantly got Jim Ratcliffe and the Ineos company on there. Liverpool reportedly up for sale, and instantly Qatar are on top of that, trying to get
Chelsea. Look at that.
Get involved.
Brownridge gets gone. Ratcliffe's in there. Bowley's in there.
Everyone wants a bit of the pie. You got that Swiss guy.
Southampton.
The Vornburg. No, I was talking about the different people that came in for Chelsea.
Yeah.
I was like some guy beginning with W. Can't remember his name. Minted though. He couldn't even win, but yeah. A lot of people are always interested, and we're constantly seeing more and more rich people enter the Premier League because they know it's a profitable business.
Yeah.
Even Mike Ashley, he invested £100 million in Newcastle to purchase the club, and he sold it for 300 mil.
He's out.
And he likely would have sold it more.
Yeah, Newcastle's a big one. They've gone from a relegation team to a Champions League challenging team
for a bit,
just like that, because they got Saudi owners.
And that is the thing. It shows because it's a profitable league. These investors want to come in. I think that's a big difference also between this league, the Premier League, and other leagues. Because if you look at the Bundesliga, for example, if you are a Saudi looking to invest in the Bundesliga, you can't. You can only buy 49% of the club. You cannot buy a controlling stake. Therefore,
what are you doing?
Where is the profit for you?
Yeah.
So there's no win for you. The only people that own Bundesliga clubs are people that love the club. And while that's brilliant and while that's a noble gesture, it doesn't grow you on the European stage.
No.
And that's why Bayern are the only team able to challenge, because they're getting so much more money than everyone else.
On the reverse and say, well, should the Premier League do what the Bundesliga does rather than the Bundesliga do what the Premier League does?
And implement the 50+1 rule. But the problem now is it's too late.
Oh, yeah.
You can't sell the clubs back.
No.
You can't tell the Saudis, sorry, you've got to give Newcastle back to the Newcastle fans. That would go to shit instantly.
Yeah.
They'd probably put themselves out front. Of any Premier League club, if it was left to their fans, it would be horrific. Imagine it was a democracy. You can't even get Chelsea fans to agree on anything.
No.
Imagine them trying to run the club. It'd be well funny, but also horrific. Premier League, it'd probably be someone like Brighton, because I think all their fans are probably the most reasonable. End up winning the league, But yeah, is this a problem then for other leagues? The fact that the Premier League does have such a vast wealth.
I mean,
they're able to splash capital all over the place, whereas other clubs,
because they can't keep up, and that gap is only just get bigger and bigger unless something. I don't know what's going to happen, but unless something happens.
Well, I think this is why the Ligue 1 has the most potential to be the second best league in the world. Because I think if you look at that league, they're doing everything right. The Serie A's issue is that they refuse to broadcast their games abroad. They refuse to do more abroad, and all the owners are stubborn. They're more than happy just to hold on to their clubs because they love the club.
And then things like...
Look at the only team that I think AC Milan, they've got Chinese ownership. Or some Middle East ownership. You've got the same for Inter now. And I thought when the Chinese came in there, they're going to dominate. They won the league, and then obviously COVID happened. and the Jiangsu Suning company, Suning, they had no money. They couldn't invest in it. They sold everything. All the players. Look at players like Achraf Hakimi and Romelu Lukaku. They had to let them leave, and now they had nothing to fight with. Yeah. I think the problem for the Serie A also is that it has become a retirement home.
Oh, yeah.
And that's their biggest issue, because it's not progressing the game out there.
Yeah,
it's still a brilliant spectacle, and I love watching the Serie A. I think it's so exciting. It's such a brilliant league, but it's not going to grow you internationally when you've got like Chris Smalling. And people go, I remember him, he used to play for Man United years ago.
Falling apart. We're sitting with Juve. You know, we've been deducted 15 points.
Well, yeah, that is the issue when your league is rife with scandals like that. I mean, the Calcio Pioli scandal was only 15 years ago now, and now you've got another scandal involving the same team. Yeah. I mean, it's unfathomable, this sort of stuff. But yeah, and that's hurt the reputation of the league again. But I do think it is a bit of a problem, because I think there's only 4 clubs right now that can compete with the big clubs for money, and that is PSG, because they are bankrolled by the Qatar. I think Bayern have a big enough fan base, and they earn so much money in the Bundesliga by winning it every year that they're able just to keep competing, and they can just buy other Bundesliga talents for cheap. So the other Bundesliga clubs do all this scouting, they find these brilliant players, they do well in one season in the Bundesliga, Bayern snap them up, they're a Bayern player now. Yeah. And for relatively cheap. I don't think Bayern have ever spent. I think Bayern's biggest fee is like 80 mil, which is the lowest in the Prem's top 10.
Even like not just, as I said, not just in the Premier League, as low as the National League. You've got Hollywood, stars with such money, like Ryan going in there, buying Wrexham.
Well, they look at the pyramid. They look at the football pyramid, and they go, you know what? We could easily go up to the top and make so much more money.
Wrexham will be could be in the Premier League in the next 10 years.
Yeah, just on my 4 clubs, I think compete as well. By the way, I think Real and Barca. Yeah. Obviously, they've got those international fan bases. They can sell a lot of shirts. They can host games in Saudi Arabia and make a lot of money if they need to. I do
think one of the sole reasons for that is because they had the 2 greatest players of all time.
I think that went a long way, but also they're the 2 biggest clubs in Spain. They dominated European football through the mid-2000s.
Because of those players.
Well, exactly, and that helped them when football got pushed into America and places like that.
And
people
went, Real still
love Real Madrid.
Real's still holding on, still dominating Europe. I mean, they won it last.
But the question is, how long will this last? I know, obviously, we've not seen it too much, but out of the last 4 years, we've seen, since the final between Liverpool and Real, Liverpool have got to a final 3 times. Tottenham have got to a Champions League final, and both Chelsea and City have got to a Champions League final. So that's 8, 10. So 5 finals,
and
7 English clubs or something.
Yeah, 3 teams to get there were Madrid, PSG and Bayern.
Yeah. Who, as I'm saying, are those clubs that are able to compete up there. The only reason Barca haven't is because the last few years have been a complete shit show at Barcelona.
Yeah, because again, money problems.
Yeah, they haven't got the finance to compete. And when they did have a bit of money, look how they spent it. It's so irresponsible. Look at how all the Premier League clubs operate. There's not as much as we can slag off some Premier League clubs for the owners not investing. There is not a single Premier League club where the owners come in and just decide to throw money at everything. Yeah. But Barcelona is a democracy. There's no owner per se. It's owned by, I believe, the fans, isn't it? And then obviously they elect a president every couple of years, and that's not gone well at Barca. No. Florentino Perez has been at Real for ages now, and he's doing all right there, to be fair. He's always...
Although he does still want to build some mega Super League.
Well, this is exactly why they want the Super League, isn't it? Because they want that share of the TV rights.
Yeah. I do think... I mean, obviously... I think
that's the only thing for the Super League. The only positive of the Super League is that we stop the Premier League running away with it, but it would ruin English football forever. I
mean, obviously Champions League is very much English dominated. I do think the introduction of the Conference League has helped.
But the fact that Tottenham bottled that, if it was any club that isn't Tottenham, they'd have won that.
Did Tottenham lose the final?
No, they got knocked out by Bodo in the groups or just after the group, something like that.
It's just laughable.
It's just comical that Tottenham should have won that.
Even I look at the Europa League. I think Barca can beat United.
I don't.
Who have Arsenal got?
They're not. They went top of the group, didn't they? So into the round of 16.
Oh, do you know what? It's ruined, isn't it?
And West Ham are there as well.
Oh, come on. They're not doing anything.
Why not?
But again, it says something. The you know what? 17th in the Premier League right now.
And they're able
And
to compete in Europe.
Competing in Europe.
With, they've beaten league leaders in other countries.
Chelsea and Liverpool, mid-table in the Premier League now. They've got through the round of 16 of the Champions League.
It just shows how competitive, it's really interesting to see how the Premier League is just so rich and they're able to do some mental stuff. And I think it is a worry for other big European clubs. Yeah. But will European football become uncompetitive? I think it already is starting to. And I think it will only continue in that way. I was having this conversation today with, actually I guess he's been on the show before, Harry. That doesn't give you much information. It could be any of the 5 that have been on. But we were talking about how, obviously, when the Champions League expands, when the Europa League expands, there are going to be 2 more spots. And they're currently going to the top coefficient. And we were saying, would that not be better suited going to the Premier League? Because you're pretty much doing the same thing anyway. Yeah. But, it doesn't really matter which one you do. It is going to be Premier League clubs getting those spots.
Yeah.
So you could end up, realistically, because if it was the current top 4 in the Premier League were going to the Champions League, then you would have Chelsea and you would have Liverpool as well. So you'd have 6 Premier League clubs competing in the Champions League. They would all likely get through. Or probably in the top...
you could end up with all English semi-finals.
You could easily end up with all English semi-finals. You could end up with... And that would still have 2 clubs getting knocked out in the quarters in all English affairs.
Yeah.
I think that is a massive issue that will have to be tackled in the years to come, because if not, you are just going to end up with a lot of clubs. And then say you had... I believe if there's a Europa League winner that qualified for the Europa League in the league, you couldn't get 7. I think they'd take a Champions League spot away from the league. But
I think so. At some point, if there's just 7 Premier League, they keep going.
How possible is it? Because you could get loads all in one league, or you could get loads in the Europa League because you get 2 for the league, and then all the Champions League teams get knocked down. You can end up with 8 in the Europa League, which doesn't seem possible. They'd all stay in the Champions League, but
even like the Carabao Cup gets you Conference League football now.
No, well, they don't add more. If a Conference League winner is won by someone outside of Europe, they don't have 2 teams in the Conference League. There's just no Conference League. It's space given to the league.
Yeah, like FA Cup, Carabao Cup, unless it's Southampton or Forest, which I highly doubt. Obviously, by the time this goes out, you'll know if it's Southampton or Newcastle in the final. But yeah, it's going to be United or Newcastle.
But it is. I think also, not only is the Premier League's wealth a problem for other leagues, it's a problem within its own league. Because if you're a well-established club like a Chelsea or Liverpool now, they've had a slip-up this season. In normal circumstances, a slip-up would be fine. They'd be able to still be 5th or 6th. But now they're down in 9th and 10th, and they're not getting European football. And actually, unless they're if Newcastle are to become a powerhouse now, then you're guaranteed you can't have all the top 6 even in the Europa League spots anymore. One of them's going to be knocked into the Conference League if Newcastle are there, and then if any of the other 13 clubs who are well financed are able to have a good season, that immediately knocks one out of Europe. And they're going to have to rely on things like...
It's a big problem.
Yeah, they have to rely on winning the tournament, which they very much could do. But can it be stopped? Only by themselves, I think. I think the only way the Premier League can stop themselves becoming the most dominant league is by stopping it themselves. And why would they do that?
Exactly.
Unless other leagues wisen up fast and try and build an international audience, I just can't see it happening. I just can't see it happening. It's very difficult now.
You think the ways it could be stopped are just inside the Premier League. What would you do?
And if
you're inside the Premier League, what do you do to stop? Obviously, they're not going to. But if you could, how would you stop it?
What, from inside the Premier League? Well, you'd have to make the TV rights less.
Tighten up on FFP.
Then you charge less contracts, and but arguably you make more sales then because the contracts are cheaper. So maybe you'd make even more. I don't know. I don't think you would. But FFP, there's not a lot you can do that. If these people are the smartest and richest people in the world, they're going to find a way around it. Look at Todd Bowley.
That man.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
He's on a 10,000-year contract.
And that's immediately got UEFA scrambling because they don't know what to do. Because they didn't foresee that happening somehow, and
you could just give a guy a 9-year contract, and pay him money very slowly,
and then a 100 mil transfer becomes 11 mil a year. But somehow they didn't see that. It's like they wrote the loophole.
So in terms of the actual question, is the Premier League too rich? Yes or no answer? I think it's a yes.
I think it's a yes. I think it is too rich because obviously football has to be rich. To operate football has to be rich. That's how it works. The best things earn the most money. But I think the Premier League compared to, because when you say it's the Premier League too rich, yeah, it's what you're comparing it to there.
Yeah.
And if you compare it to other European leagues that operate just fine, the Premier League has way too much money right now, and that's not going to change.
Yeah.
And I think we are destined to have. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 50 Champions Leagues there are only 5 seasons where a Premier League club doesn't win it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised because unless another league does
no one
something
has
mental.
control over the Premier League. There's no one if there's a hierarchy, there's no one above the Premier League.
Well, UEFA in a way.
But they can't.
FIFA obviously govern all of football.
Yeah.
But what can there's going to become a point where the Premier League becomes too powerful. What could they do?
Can't stop.
What are UEFA going to do? Say no, sorry, you can't come in the competition for 5 years. That's not going to work because guess what they'll do? They'll go and make a Super League.
Yeah.
They'll go and run their own competition because
Maybe we should make a Super
that is
League,
how the
see
world
what
works.
happens.
Yeah. That's UEFA's problem now. They can't compete without English clubs because English clubs will do something
If
themselves.
you look at the Super League, there's only 6 English clubs in there. If you take them all out, suddenly you've got so much room for other European countries to do well.
The only way a Super League could work is if it was an extension of the Champions League.
Yeah.
So I think the best way you could have a Super League is if it's the league winners from all of the top divisions in Europe all go and fight in this separate competition, and the Champions League just below. But then that negates the need for the Champions League.
Yeah,
You
okay.
basically because what they'd rather do is add another ladder below.
Yeah.
They keep adding ladders below in Europe.
On the Champions League, then, do you think the new league format that we're going into in 2024, do you think that helps other European sides or benefits the Premier League sides more?
I think if anything, it makes it harder for a small team to win the Champions League. Because what you have currently in the Champions League is you can get drawn a nice group, get a nice run, be all right. What you'll have now is that you have to be consistent through the group stage.
Yeah.
And then you have to be good enough
You have to get in the top 24.
You have to get in the top. Well, yeah, and that's it. That's even to get to the round of 32. If you want to get straight to the round of 16, you have to finish in the top 8. And that's incredibly difficult to do because once the Premier League top 6 are there, there's 2 spots.
Yeah.
So obviously, I don't think all of the top 6 Premier League sides would get into
I think City would.
Champions League thing.
Would.
Because
Chelsea
that's the thing. As much as at the
Arsenal
moment
would.
it's 4 spots, when you have 2 coefficient ones, I can't see Barcelona or Real Madrid finishing outside the top 4 in the Liga.
Yeah.
I think Juventus's coefficient ranking will be nothing by then because they're not going to play Europe for 3 years.
They're not.
Well, they're not going to play Europe this year, are they? Or next year, unless they're winning something this year.
Which
I don't think they're going to.
That's 15
They're
points.
going to lose to Nantes in the Europa League round of 32, aren't they?
Yeah. Which
They're
I guess
gonna
great
lose
for
to
Nantes, though.
I mean, it would be, yeah. Not like going to be licking their lips. They get a chance to play Juventus.
Again, things like that prove why League One is probably can be the closest to compete.
But also, Liga 1 hones brilliant young talent, and it doesn't. And unlike the Bundesliga, it doesn't have a 50+1 rule, so people could come in and invest. So I think you will start to see.
I would though.
If you're an investor, because you could. I think you could definitely take a club from 18th to 2nd quite easily, with a bit of smart investment.
Even, probably top's a bit far, but go take it.
I think also what we'll see over the next 20 years is this expansion of like football tycoons, and what I mean by that is the City group, Manchester City. If you want to New York City, Melbourne City, and I think there might be one more. I can't remember though. I believe there's another one somewhere. Obviously, then Red Bull Salzburg, Red Bull Leipzig, and New York Red Bulls. So I think we will start to see things like that. I think Todd Bowley's already made it quite clear.
There was obviously
he wants to buy the clubs.
RB Derby, Red Bull Derby.
Yeah, I think Red Bull are going to want to be in the Premier League, aren't they? So I think it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, they've got to be smart with location and what they're looking to achieve. But yeah, Red Bull quickly becoming one of the most dominant sports brands, aren't they? They own 3 Premier League clubs. They've got the most successful F1 brand currently. It's interesting. But I think we're going to see more of these brands. Obviously, a single owner can't own multiple football clubs that compete in the same competition.
Even like obviously Jordan now have all the PSG make the PSG kits. They're the main. What's it called?
Yeah, but if it's a company though, they can own multiple things. That's why the City Group are and also the City Group that none of them compete in the same continent. So there's no chance of them.
But I think that is a big thing. You've gone from your like Nike, Adidas, Puma So you've now got like Castor,
Yeah, but Castor's kits are
Jordan.
tragic.
The Villa kit ain't bad.
It's not great, though, is it?
And also even Gucci. Now
I
getting
think
into football.
I mean they made some boots, didn't they?
Yeah, all through PSG.
Louis Vuitton,
again,
I think, would also.
Yeah, they're also in there somewhere.
Wouldn't be surprised if they start making kits. I think we are. The football is just getting wealthier and wealthier, and it's starting to.
But hopefully, if it is going to get wealthier, it isn't the Premier League. It's the other.
It's also
leagues, so they can
fascinating
catch
by
up.
what the growth which football's seen over the last few years compared to other sports. Because other sports have room to grow because no one's watching them. But I think Formula One is probably the only one that's challenging it in terms of growth right now. Because who's getting into golf this year?
Cricket had a big year.
Yeah, but
that's.
I think that's just within England, is it? Because they won it.
Well, no, but that's also the thing. You've got to remember, if you made it's like India, cricket is the biggest sport.
Yeah, if football can fully tap into places like India and China and America,
I don't think it will though.
I think
I think cricket is so much embedded
Eventually.
into India.
yeah, but slowly I think we're starting to see now that football is just
Australia
taking
again,
over.
cricket the main sport there.
Yeah,
But yeah, I see England winning everything last year. Can't help with the cricket.
yeah. Well, I mean, England's starting to win a lot of things, aren't they? Obviously, we
Yeah.
saw them win the women's Euros.
People should darts. Get darts up there.
Yeah, if we can make darts the best.
It's also international, isn't it? There's so many different
Yeah.
players from different nations.
No one from Zimbabwe though.
No.
I don't know if they broadcast the World Darts Championship
No.
in Zimbabwe, but they should.
That's the other thing. Obviously, the Premier League also tapping into Africa. No other sport, no other league does that.
And I think it is because football's the most accessible sport in the world.
Yeah.
Anyone can play football. There's no one out there
That
that
is the
couldn't
thing.
play football. Oh,
But
you know,
the
it's
two
least
sports
enjoyable
we've
in
named
some
there. Obviously,
How you can play darts?
exactly.
You've got to have a board. You've got to
football
have
and cricket.
You've
The
got to
two
play-
easiest sports to play.
Trying to play cricket by yourself. What you got to do is you got to run up to the one set,
No,
throw it in
no.
the air, run to the other one,
But
get the
all
bat,
you
and
need
then
is
hit it.
4 sticks and a ball.
You don't even need that. You could just play football with a ball. You can find a wall, and that's why it's
Wouldn't
such
you
a
play cricket with a
sport.
wall?
No, you couldn't.
You usually need something to act as a bat and something to act as a ball.
No, you have to
hit
have a
it.
bat.
As I said, something to
And
be.
also, you have to.
No,
You couldn't play cricket with an Oasis bottle and a
I've tried. It was fun.
and a teddy bear.
You get a stick
could play
out,
football.
like a bit of wood,
Right,
and just
whatever.
swing that around.
Waffling now. This has been a very productive conversation.
Yes.
I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll be
Hope-
back
if you have enjoyed
next
it.
week with probably something a lot less
Yeah.
formal. And
But if you have
a lot
enjoyed it
more-
though, share it.
Yeah.
Click the join
Make sure
button.
to get involved in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. And of course, as Harry says, we do now have memberships on the channel. So if you are
Very
a
cheap.
massive fan, if you're watching every single episode and you're tuning into all the streams, then why not get a membership and show us your
You
support?
get a green name in chat in the streams. You get tiers.
We've got a membership that's as cheap as we could possibly make it because we
Yeah.
want you guys to feel like you can be involved. We'll also not have forcing you to fork out, and then
all
there
about
is a
money.
more expensive option if you would like to help us out more. But yeah, it helps us out a lot. Other than that, if you're listening on Spotify, make sure to follow. Make sure to if you leave a rating as well. That helps. And yeah, get involved on the YouTube.
right now. Go over to the YouTube.
That's where you can get involved in the community. But yeah, that is all from us today. Thank you all very much for watching or listening, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.